Coach Mooney, upon further review, do you have another view of the other night, or sort of the same thing?
Very similar. You know, most importantly, we played, got our first game in, and handled some things pretty well. Certainly room for improvement, and hopefully we'll start to see that tomorrow.
Since Mike was just up here, I wonder if you could talk about perhaps his overall development, but more importantly, what he's done since last year to this year.
Yeah. Well, he's a very, very hard worker. We've been really lucky. The bigger guys in our program have loved basketball and really tried to get better at basketball. Neil was a relentless worker. Grant Golden was a relentless worker. Mike's very much in that mold. He's improved since he's been here, but especially I think more just in terms of taking his time. Hopefully he's more confident, or he definitely is more confident to try some things out there. And, I think that as the hard work and confidence continue to grow or continue to meet, that's recipe for being very good, and I think he's well on his way.
Hey, may I ask a big picture question? When you talked the other day about redshirting your two scholarship freshmen and suggested that perhaps the pendulum might be swinging back the other way in terms of guys staying at their schools for 4 or 5 years, what gives you optimism that we might be headed back in that direction?
Yeah, great question. I don't necessarily have anything tangible, John. More just, I think things have changed so quickly and so dramatically. I just feel like naturally there's a, reverberate. What's the right word? Something to go.
Pressure to the meat.
Maybe, but more like it has to go back the other way. I think. Like there's a difference in polling numbers than there are in like what people are actually saying and thinking. And I think that when student athletes are looking at the springtime to make a decision, I think there's going to be more and more people say, well, he transferred and it didn't work out. Your friend or, somebody from your high school team, and kind of the evidence of transferring being automatically positive, I think will dissipate to a certain degree, and I think guys will consider staying as much more of a plausible option. This is only me reading into it. I don't have any evidence for that, but that's what I feel like might happen. And I would think at Richmond we'd be well positioned for that to happen here first.
You're going for your 350th win with the Spiders tomorrow against Marist. Tony Bennett, NIL, portal. What keeps you here aside from compensation in this industry? It's different, and much different than when you arrived.
Yeah, it's much different, and I don't want to say something in because the question was kind of in relationship to Coach Bennett that might say that he wasn't enjoying. But I do love the relationships with the players, the staff. We've had great staff, great people to be around. I love Richmond and being the coach and having the responsibility of something that's very public, making sure that we do it a particular way. The competition is fun. I wouldn't have signed up to have it done exactly this way, although I'm sure we're in the midst of getting it to a more solid foundation. But for me, those positives still far outweigh the negatives.
Thank you.
On that big picture, do you think it'll take new guidelines or guidelines at all to have that pendulum swing back, or do you think we're living in what we've got now?
Well, I think the guidelines they have to come at some point, or they inevitably they'll be here. That may help a little bit. I just more think it's the idea that because it's been so drastic, that there will be quite as many stories of somebody who transferred and it didn't work out well versus somebody who stayed in their school and everything was good except maybe they're just their playing time, and so I think that anecdotal evidence or that life experience, basketball community tends to be pretty tight. So a lot of the parents will know 20 Division I players. or the parents of 20 Division I players, and they'll have a sampling to say, you know, it's a little bit risky if you transfer. And I just think it'll come back a little bit to it being a great opportunity to be somewhere and graduate at a place that you called home for 4 years.
Back to real-time basketball. Your three bigs were great the other night. I mean, 28 points, 27 rebounds. What has that competition been like, and how can that help?
Well, it's been great. You know, it's mainly now it's been between Mike and Jonathan, because Ryan has just in the last 10 days become able to practice. So, but it's really has been good. I mean, they're very competitive players. They really battle, but then they're very they have a good way of encouraging one another. And they're all slightly different. I would say that the biggest thing they have in common is competitiveness, and they're very fluid and can move. It doesn't look exactly the same with each of them, but they can move and are very fluid and good athletes. So I do like, obviously I love what that potentially can give us. And as Ryan gets healthier and better conditioned, I think that'll be something where we can play two of them together and something we could give ourselves a real advantage.
How different on the court do you think it will be tomorrow night against D1, Marist? Looks like they have a couple of pretty good guards, but not overly big.
Yeah, I mean, the guards are very, very good, both preseason, all-conference guys coming off a freshman year, so that's an impressive accolade to get as a sophomore. Yeah, I think they're a good team, very well coached, excellent defensively last season. So we'll see. It'll be so different. The game was it's just a very, very unique physical style of play that we saw. So we're looking forward to competing and playing, and you have to play different styles. I mean, that's one thing, that just being out there and under the lights, that's important way to try to measure yourself. And so hopefully we'll play well tomorrow.
Hey, Mike, with the banner being raised tomorrow night, think back at perhaps what winning that, with that experience, how could that be helpful as you move forward as a player, as a person, whatever? What lessons did you take from that?
Yeah, we had a ton of young guys last year, so I think to be able to start off their careers achieving something special, especially something so memorable, first time in program history we've ever won the A-10 regular season. So I think that's something that'll fuel our fire, especially, and also give us something to work towards again, try and repeat it. So.
On a personal note, when you arrived, you told me last year you knew you weren't ready to play. What's changed, and how do you feel now compared to your freshman year?
It's a good question. I think certainly time does the trick. Just being in the program for coming on 3 years now, I've certainly learned a lot from from Matt, from Neil, from Grant, from TJ, who's been around. So certainly the knowledge has helped. Also, confidence has been instilled in me by coaches, by my teammates. So I think confidence for me has always been probably the most important part.
Where does that show up?
I think shooting the ball. Last year I didn't look to score, and that was a huge problem. I had a role, and I stuck to the role, and I did my role very well. We won the A-10 regular season championship, but my role's changed this year, and I'm now being counted on to score the ball, to facilitate to my teammates, to just make the right basketball plays. So I think having that confidence is something you were able to see on Mount Olive.
You've been around this group since July now. How would you characterize it?
We're a gritty team, very talented team, great people, great basketball players, but even better people. So I think just in terms of team closeness, I think this is the closest team I've ever been a part of. But again, it comes down to the basketball side, and this is one of the most talented teams I've been a part of. Very high potential, very high ceiling for this team. Very young, we need to learn a lot about college basketball, the pace of college basketball. But I think once we get adjusted to that, you're going to see something special.
What did it feel like to hear your name called before the opening tip?
I kind of blacked out. I can't lie. I didn't really hear my name. I did hear my mom screaming in the back, though. So that's something I've always been able to hear since I started playing sports. But a surreal feeling, of course.
What did it mean to be starting?
A lot. It boils down to all the hard work I put in since I've gotten here. Just like John said, I wasn't expecting to play last year. I knew I wasn't going to play freshman year. So to be able to, 3 years in now, confidently say that I'm a difference maker and I'm a starter for Richmond basketball, which has a storied history of great bigs, it's really special.
The three bigs were really special Wednesday night. What's the competition like between the three of you and kind of the camaraderie between the three of you?
Yeah, every day at practice is to grind. We're all trying to take each other's spots. I think we have the best big men in the conference, maybe in the country, just in how skilled we are. And we push each other every day in practice. And it showed up against Mount Olive especially. But when it comes to game time, we're all on each other's side.
What do you think the difference could be tomorrow, now back to Division I teams and opponents and competition?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think that first game is now under our belt. The jitters are gone. So I think the Richmond basketball that we've been accustomed to will start to show up again. I don't think we'll be as flustered. Marist plays a different type of defense. They don't press the entire game, which for a young team as we have, young guards as well, that kind of gets under their skin. And so to be able to fall back on our principles, the Richmond offense, I think that'll be good for us.